1982. I was a junior in high school. So I've run every Falmouth Road race since then, since except for 2013. I was climbing Kilimanjaro, but that's a different story. We can get to later if we ever get if we get to it. But was always a big runner. I'd been running marathons. I've run 14 marathons, finished 13 of them. Um, but how did I get involved coaching?
All right, my friend Neil Levine, thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I know exactly where you're sitting, right in front of your beautiful restaurant. So, I yeah, I appreciate you taking
Thank
the
you.
time. So, I have some questions for you. I wanna throw out. First of all, I don't know much about your background. I know you as like the legendary Oliver Ames track coach, of course. But did you grow up in Easton, and or was that, kind of, give if you can give a bit of your background?
Sure. So I grew up my early years in the neighborhood of
Oh,
Mattapan
okay.
in Boston during like the whole early 70s, mid to late early 70s. I was born in 1964, so lived through that whole forced busing stuff back in when Boston was in just terrible turmoil. And then, went to middle school in that area. So I have a lot of memories from that part of the world. And then in 1979, my mom moved to
Yep.
Randolph. My parents got divorced, and mom moved to Randolph, bought a house in Randolph. So I went to high school in Randolph, spent a few years in Randolph, graduated high school, and then moved on my own around 18, 19 years old, and, got an apartment in Brockton with all my buddies
I
and never
gotcha.
looked back. So didn't grow up in Easton. Easton was kind of,
Yeah,
we got lucky, I should
yeah,
say, when
for
we found
sure.
this place.
And was track always a part of your life?
So I've always been a runner since I was probably, well, actually, when I moved to Randolph, I started running to get in shape for football and, spent a couple of days on the football field in double sessions and said, this is crazy. And ended up joining the cross country team in high school and ran a couple of seasons of cross country. Never was a big track runner. But I started running the Falmouth Road Race, I think in 1982. I was a junior in high school. So I've run every Falmouth Road Race since then, since except for 2013. I was climbing Kilimanjaro, but that's a different story. We can get to later if we ever get if we get to it. But was always a big runner. I'd been running marathons. I've run 14 marathons, finished 13 of them. Um, but how did I get involved coaching? One of my running buddies from Easton,
Yeah,
Craig Moscato, kind of fell into coaching
yeah,
cross country, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I need some help with this coaching thing." And I knew absolutely nothing about coaching. I knew very little about running and dynamic. I mean, I was a runner. I ran every day, but it's from a technical standpoint, it was kind of like, okay. And I went to practice one day and kids were puking all over the place and working hard and doing great things. And I was just like, wow, this is great. And, he asked me to volunteer one day a week, and one day a week turned into a full-time 15-year obsession of coaching cross
that's
country in
super
OA.
cool. I wanna share with you that I just have a ton of respect for you. You're 5 years older than me, but I have such a level of respect because you're still at it. I mean, I watched you over over at the gym, I don't know, a month ago, and you had a ruck pack on your back, and I mean, I got there,
Yeah.
um, and you were on the stair climber, and I did my whole entire workout, and I left, and you're still on there with,
And I'm still on the stair climber.
oh my
Yeah.
God.
That's like that's my classic mountain work. I'm going to Peru in a few weeks to do some
Uh,
hiking and trekking. So I was trained. At the time, that was a 50-pound pack for about 2 hours on the Stairmaster. I try and do that every
my
day,
friend,
but
you're a
we're getting there.
beast. I love it. I love it so much. That's so cool. So cool. Um, yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So first of all, I love Craig. I haven't, I have so many great memories of him. Um, so it's cool that he's the
Yeah.
person that got you into it. As far as you
Yeah.
being a track coach, I knew about you because a lot of our dates with our black belt testing conflicted with, your oh yeah,
A
yeah,
lot of
yeah, and
conflict.
you worked with my what you worked, beautifully with my brother and sister-in-law and navigating all the students that we had in common and all that. Any great memories from being a coach that really kind of
Yeah.
stick out in your mind?
I have a lifetime of great memories, it was just such a phenomenal experience. One of my favorite is, we won a lot of championships, a lot of wins, a lot of all-stars, a lot of people, national runners, that went to the national championships. I mean, great successes. But there was a young girl, on the team who was a sophomore at the time, and she started the season and got diagnosed with like a tumor in her back, and had the tumor surgically removed and couldn't run all season. So basically, she spent the season after surgery, coming to every practice, but couldn't run, but was just there as a supporter of the team. And one of the last races of the season is called the Coach's Invitational at Franklin Park, and she was cleared to like run it in this race. So it was like she was in the sophomore girls race, last race of the day. It was a terrible, muddy, rainy, just miserable day at Franklin Park in Boston, and the gun goes off for the race, and she's the slowest person in the race, and it's the last race of the day, and the officials are taking down the course. They're wrapping up all the boundary lines and all that kind of stuff, and all the parents have gone, and all the schools are pretty much left, and on the course is me, her mom, her dad, and this particular young lady. And she finishes the race, and she's the only one out there, and I was, the faucets in my eyes just turned on, that she was. That's probably one of my favorite
Yeah.
coaching moments of all time.
It's
Yeah.
being a teacher now, this is my 33rd year with personal best, and to take somebody that has God-given natural ability and make them great is, it's a challenge, but it's easier. You take somebody like the young lady you're talking about, or you take somebody that doesn't have that God-given ability but has a fierce determination. I mean, that's the juice of what
Yeah.
we do.
That's what it's all about. The good people, the superstars will be
Yep.
good without you. It's the
Yes.
people who need you that, this young lady was the slowest person on the team as a sophomore, and she went on to be a captain as a senior. And, she became a nurse and, a mom, and she's doing great things now, and she's one of my closest friends. Um, it's just, great moments like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it speaks a lot about you that when I asked you about your 15 years as coach there, that's the example that you pick out as, one of your highlights. That's just so cool. So, so cool. May I ask, you super impressed me and you made me really nervous, if you must know, because we both spoke at a chamber event and I had no idea what a good public speaker you were, and you just blew me away, and I'm like, oh God, now I gotta follow I gotta follow him. But
Yeah.
as far as correlations between athletics, the things that you instilled in the students, and how you influence your team today, as a business person, and we're going to talk about your business in a second. Like, what are some of those commonalities or things that you've learned that absolutely transfer over?
Well, sports is a metaphor for life. It's a metaphor for business. And, what we always did and what we do and we continue to do today is preach values. And those values transcend sports. They transcend athletics. They transcend business. They transcend personal relationships, and they transcend family. If you have a core belief and core value system, and you let that influence your decision making and everything you do every day. That's the message. I mean, when I was coaching, the sport cross country was just a vehicle, and what we weren't trying to achieve wins and losses. We were trying to achieve instilling values in the young men and women that we had the honor of being able to spend time with. And if you run your business like that, and if you run your life like that, kind of how I strive to do every day. We based on 5 key values: integrity, commitment, hard work, and sacrifice. And I kind of finished that off in the pursuit of excellence. Most important value, first value, is integrity. Your word is all you have in life. And if what you say isn't what you mean and what you say isn't what you do, you have absolutely nothing. So everything that you do in life stems from integrity. And that was like the first most important value. You know, the hard work, the commitment, the sacrifice, the perseverance, those are all things that happen to you in life and knock you down. And it's a message that, again, transcends sports, it transcends business. And,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
how we roll.
It's awesome. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were asking about my day today, and they were saying, "So what's with this? What's with this podcast that you're doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm interviewing people that that are very community-minded people that I've admired, yada yada yada." And I mentioned your name, and she's like, "My God, my parents go there all the time. That is their favorite." Restaurant, and she was just over the moon excited, like I'm interviewing Brad Pitt or something like that. Like she overt, yeah, yeah,
Oh, God.
she was overtly excited. So I have to ask because your reputation with the restaurant is just extraordinary. So what are the things that you think you do that separate you, so beautifully from, all of the other places out there because you're doing something.
You're
Well,
very
it's
kind to
report.
say that. Thank you. Most of, thank you, thank you. Most importantly is the relationship I have with my two partners, Patrick and Michael. Um, we've been together since the beginning. We've been here 30, it was 32 years ago in April that we actually put a deposit on the place and purchased it. We opened up in June of 1993. So it was April of 93 that we bought the place, and we had worked together before that. And I'm just blessed to have two just phenomenal, honest, hardworking, dedicated partners who share the same values that I do. And that's number one. And everything stems from that partnership and the success that I'd be nothing, absolutely nothing without them. And I truly mean that. And the team that we've built over the past 30, we've got 53 fantastic, employees that have been here. Some of us, there's one since the beginning. There's a couple, 30 years, and there's a few 27, 25, 20, it's like we're very, very blessed with consistent employees. So, number one comes from the partners. Um, we have a philosophy that one of us always has to be here. So we're not the smartest guys, but there's always one of us. The person that signs the front of the check is always on premises. If we're open, there's an owner present, and we care about our customers. We care about the community. We care about our employees. I think we put our employees first and our customers second. People say you're going to put the customers first, but excuse me. I think if you take care of your people, they take care of your customers, and that's always been our business philosophy. It's like, oh, you should expand, you should get other places, you should do this, you should do that. We're just happy running what we do and serving, a product and a service that comes from our heart. And I think that's kind of a basic,
Yeah, yeah,
our tenet
yeah.
of how we do things, the question I ask, I don't know, it's kind of funny. People say, what's your secret? That's the secret. And then the other thing that we do is when someone asks me a question, someone that works here or an employee, they have a dish comes up on the line and they look at it and something doesn't look right or it doesn't taste right, it doesn't smell right. And I ask them the question, I said, would you eat it? And if there's any hesitation, then no, don't serve. Only serve things that that you'd want to eat and that you'd be proud to serve. And that's our guiding light in everything we do. Treat people like they want to be treated, treat people like you want to be treated. Um, that's my grandmother always said, she was, Jew by birth, but her religion was, treat people the way you want to be treated, and that's kind of how we roll.
It's interesting to me, and maybe you can relate to this as an athlete. People will look for, what's the latest, greatest, the fad, we've had ice baths, we've had saunas, we've had, the 5 a.m. club, we've had the hustle, we've had, uh, doing this over the years, you have all
Yeah,
of these things, and by the way, they all have a place, and I don't mean to knock them, but what I have come to appreciate more and more is that the answer is really the basics in martial arts. It always comes back to the fundamentals and the basics. It's not the new latest fancy move that
Yeah.
everybody's doing. It comes back to that. Like how do you climb mountains? It's well, I get on a I get on a stair climber. I throw 50 pounds on my back and I walk for 2 hours. You know, it's
Yeah.
not the silver bullet everybody wants to hear, but it's
It's not
right,
rocket
right.
science.
Yeah,
It's discipline. Like you say, it's the basics. 99% of success in life is showing up every day. And you got to show up every day and you got to do the work. I have a routine. I do more by 10 o'clock in the morning than most people do in a month. But I'm up at 4 o'clock and it's, you get up. I make my pot of coffee. I make my protein calorie dense shake. I sit down. I journal. I think, I clear my head of all my thoughts. I write everything down. Then it's like, laundry, dishes, feed the cat, downstairs to the basement, yoga, strength training, and so boom, boom, and it's like a 4 hour routine every day. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I can't get into work before 11 because I'm doing all the different
yeah.
stuff
But
I do every day. It's
that's
crazy.
what makes you who you are, and and it's extraordinary. We talked about how we talked about how skills translated from athletics over to running the business. Were there any things that caught you by surprise as wow, I didn't see that surface in athletics, but in my business it absolutely did. Any things that you're like, geez, I didn't see that one coming.
Every day there's something that we don't see coming. That's what makes the restaurant business such a challenge. Every day you are faced with challenges, and the only thing that you control in life is how you respond to those challenges. It's a very stoic Marcus Aurelius meditations. I'm a big philosophy guy. I'm a big Marcus Aurelius meditations guy. I'm a big Aristotle guy, but they kind of conflict a little bit in some of their thinking. But from a stoic standpoint, it's like stuff happens. You can either it's happened. So how are you going to react to it? And reacting, to challenges, no one is how you live your life. No one judges you about how you do when things are great. People, or not say be judged, but yeah, you're judged by how you respond to challenge. You're judged by how you respond to adversity, or what makes your character is a better way of saying it is how you respond to adversity, whether it's pandemics or governmental stuff or health. We're faced with challenges every day, and it's
So
crazy.
is your you know, I remember you talking about COVID, of course, when you spoke, and again, compliments to you
Yeah.
because it was phenomenal. Is part of then the fact that there's challenges every day is part of your secret, would you say, Chris, I'm waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm spending 4 hours taking care of myself first so I can be present for whatever the day throws at me. Is that part of it?
Yeah, it's discipline. It's a huge part of it. You need time to be yourself because you are challenged every day in life.
Right.
You think of COVID, you think of sickness, you think of health, you think of all the different things that happen to you. It's crazy. I mean, the governor shut us down with 2,000 pounds of corned beef in our cooler. What are you going to do then? The town decides to rip up the street and shut your business down, and then the town decides to put a sewer line in that costs you $150,000. What are you going to do? You go to the doctor, they say you have cancer. What are you going to do? You got to do everything. It's like, okay, you're going to wallow in your own sorrow. Well, yeah, yeah. Okay, wallow. Okay, wallowing's over. Give yourself 5 minutes, 10 minutes to think about it, and then move on. How am I going to deal with this? How am I going to fix it? How am I going to make my life better? You can't live in the past. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. Today is they call it the present because it's a
Yeah.
gift. Make the most of it.
You embody it, my
So,
friend. Regarding the regarding the restaurant, any things, any special things coming up for everybody to be aware of? Any of those things that you want to kind of just bring attention to?
well, we do stuff all the time. We're constantly changing. We change our menu, new drinks, new cocktails every couple of months. Seasonally. And then, I don't know when this is going to air, but it's going to be Passover. First night of Passover is tomorrow. So I made my Aunt Mattie's Jewish style Passover brisket. And, so it takes about probably the way I do it. I put it in the oven. We put it in the oven last night at about 9 o'clock at night. I just took out about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to let it sit for about 24 hours. Then I'm going to, cut it, clean it, portion it out. So it's about a 48-hour process. We'll be serving that tomorrow, but let's do the Passover holiday. I'm going to be doing some matzo ball soup and we just always looking for different
Mm-hmm.
fun things and um, great stuff. So the menu, we have a pretty standard menu that we've been running um, for a long time. We've got it dialed in. The things that slow us down are off the menu. The things that make us more efficient are on the menu. The thing, the customer favorites. There isn't like something on the menu. It's a big menu,
Yeah.
but everything on the menu moves. There's no dead items. And then, every day we run about a half dozen, different specials, and we're always being creative, whether it's seasonal, great produce is coming out now. So, strawberry season is coming soon. So we're doing a lot of strawberry stuff with the strawberry desserts and spring onions and anything we can incorporate into the dishes. I made a beautiful haddock chowder today for Lent with shrimp and scallops, like a seafood chowder. That's on the menu today. I'm gonna be doing matzo ball soup this week for Passover, my
Yeah.
grandmother's matzo ball soup recipe.
I I
Always
love it.
mixing it
I
up.
love it.
You know.
I want to say there's a and this was brought about by the person that had that overt excitement when they knew I was going to be interviewing you. There you within your restaurant, there's a feeling of home that she mentioned. Her parents, like, they're connected. It's yes, it's so in my the way that I grew up, food is love. It's not just nutrition,
Yeah.
it's love. But culture is the hardest and greatest asset of any business. And she mentioned that to me, and I want to, number one, compliment you. And then maybe you've already talked about it, but how is it that you keep the culture so that people are coming there, year after year and it feels like home to them?
Well, as you said, love is
Yeah,
the secret ingredient
yeah,
in everything you do. Um, we're blessed that we have long-term employees. We're blessed that we have long-term customers. We've had 3 generations. People are bringing their babies in there. There's a young man who grew up in Easton whose parents used to bring him there, whose daughter was 6 days old and had her first meal
oh my goodness.
at McGuire's. Um, there's children of customers that work here. There's generations of employees, like the mom works here and now the daughter works here, and the mom still works here. I think that says a lot. Um, our staff is like family, and conversely, our customers are like family. We're blessed with like a great local community, and we care. We want you to leave with a smile on your face. We want you to understand that we care and are grateful that you're coming to eat at our place. You can drive by 100 restaurants. We're not the prettiest restaurant. I use this a lot. We're like that old pair of jeans in your closet. It's torn, it's tattered, it's worn out. They're really ugly. You don't want to wear them when you go out. But geez, you put them on, they feel
Yeah,
so comfortable when you put them on. And that's how we want people to feel when they walk in the door, like they've just put on their favorite pair of comfortable jeans and, walk through the door kind of thing. And that's a philosophy uh, that we try and cultivate. We want people to understand that we're grateful that they've chosen to spend their money here. And, I think it translates through to not just what people say about us. It's not what you say, but it's what you do. And when you have generations of employees, when you have generations of customers, when you're busy, is as much we're blessed, with the amount of business that we have in a very, very challenging environment right now. You cultivate that, and I want a genuine thank you to every. I tell the girls, make sure that 17 people said thank you to that customer. Like if you see a customer heading to the door, I don't care if it was, your customer or my customer or, your table, whatever, you say, whoever it is, you see someone walk out the door, thank you very much, have a good day. And look them in the eye and talk to them like a human being and, pay attention. It gets more
of
challenging
course.
as time passes and people are, buried in their devices and there's a lack of communication. And I think a place like McGuire's that has that connection is poised to succeed because everyone right now is just craving that so much. Everyone's buried into their devices and they don't get that interpersonal connection that you get from, conversations, the local pub or the local place. It's kind of like a meeting place where you can talk and interact with people and get a true feeling as opposed to what something
Right.
is over a
Yeah, for
screen.
sure. It
I
I
think
think it
that's, that,
I think it
it
makes it
works, I think.
far more valuable. It's the difference between getting an email from somebody or a handwritten note, right? I mean, you get a handwritten note, you
Yeah.
almost fall over. You're like, what?
Right.
That's
Right.
great.
Wow. There's a few of us left that
Right.
do it every now and then.
Any
Yeah.
final thoughts,
Yeah.
goals, projects, dreams, horizons that you want to share?
I don't have a list. But it's just, I always, when I was coaching and the way I live, the things I do, you just want to leave the world a little bit better than the way you found it. If you're walking by a piece of paper, you pick it up. If you see someone's hungry, you feed them. If there's a need, if you go to visit someplace, you try and give back to the community. Just try and like leave places a little bit better than the way you found them. And if everybody lived like that, I think we'd have a much
Yeah,
better world that we
agreed,
could
my
live in.
friend. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time. It's you have done nothing but reinforce the reason that I initially said, "Geez, I got to get an interview with them." You know, you have you have done no,
Oh,
you
cool.
Neil, sincerely, you've done a lot for our community, and I've never met anyone. Yeah, well,
You have to.
that's I think you and I have that in common, that kind of DNA that's just what you do, but not everybody adheres to it with the level of consistency that you have. So, thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for your support, for
You're
your
welcome.
friendship, and after this conversation, guess where I'm going to eat
My
this
pleasure.
coming week after you going through the whole list of all of that delicious food. So.
I'll be doing the brisket
Nice,
probably.
nice. All right, my friend. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.